Hello and welcome to the Box Score Network NFL preview show on YouTube. My name is Simon Short. Joining me this week is Ben Parker and Austin Freed. What is up, guys? How you doing?
Doing great. Ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, it's an exciting Sunday coming up.
We just a fire burning type of weekend performance coming up ahead of us. Hopefully, all well wishes to everyone's fantasy teams and fantasy leagues. Um, and we are just going to get right into it. We have our game of the week, which you scroll all the way down through the games all weekend long, and yeah, you're not too excited. But then you get to this one here, Sunday Night Football, Chargers at Chiefs. Chiefs are currently favored by 4. Ben, talk about this game. What are you looking for, whether it's really deep on the field or, as we get into playoff seeding, how are you feeling about these two teams?
I feel good about both teams, but they're both limited to me. I'm starting to regard the Chiefs, and I hate to say this because they're the two-time defending champs, and they got Mahomes and they got Reed, but I'm starting to regard them as a step down from the elite teams in the NFL right now. I just can't shake it, man. That this offense hasn't got going. The defense, which looked really good most of the year, has kind of slidden back the past 3 weeks or so. And I know it's easy to say, well, they looked the same last year, which is 100% true. But you still wonder where the offense is going to come from, and are they going to kind of pull the rabbit out of the hat with the wide receiving thing this year? So that's got me a little worried. But this is a fun game right here, man. Game of the week. It's my most funnest game of the week. The biggest thing I'm going to pull out of here is I expect the Chargers to be able to pass the football. They've done it the past 4 or 5 weeks now. They're starting to really get that kind of game set. I suspect and I hope that that will get the Chiefs to move off of their game, which is kind of ground and pound and grind. In a close game, give me Mahomes at the end, but I'm interested to see if the Chargers can just pull away a little bit here because they can score points.
Austin, how are you feeling?
Yeah, I mentioning about how like the Chiefs are way overperforming their kind of roster and how well they've been playing. I think they're at best the fourth best team in the National Football League. I think you have to put at least four or three other teams ahead of them. Um, at worst, they're like the seventh best team. They're still a
Yeah.
really friggin' good football team. They're not. I feel like we're getting lost in the nuance of they're slightly overperforming what they should be, and kind of overlooking that they are still a really good football team. And I think they're going to handle the Chargers. The Chargers are going to throw some stuff at them defensively, but I expect Patrick, who's able to kind of shrug off anything at this point in his career, and just get a win however needed. So if you're making me take points, that's what I don't like. The Chiefs, all they care about is winning this football game. They don't care if it's by 1 or by 21.
Yeah, it's funny, over the years we've had this whole big conversation about one scored wins and what makes it real, what makes it not real, is it fluky or is there a real talent to winning these games? And you can point to some teams and you just kind of know when it's real and when it isn't, right? And I'll beat up on two of our teams here. The Vikings a couple years ago had all those one score games, lost in the first round of the Giants. The Steelers had all those one score wins just last season and get blown out by the Bills in the first round of the playoffs. The Chiefs, when it's Patrick Mahomes doing all the one score wins, like I feel a little bit more confident in that. And I took this down. The Chiefs are obviously it's talked about ad nauseum, 9-0 in one score games this season. The Chargers are 3-3. So for as professional and mostly normal, at least in non-Chargers ways, the Chargers are this season, one score games are still eluding them. And the Chargers are very good, very solid, very methodical. Ben talked about their pass game, and it's very efficient, but it's not super explosive. And the things that the Chargers or the things that the Chiefs are slipping at defensively speaking, as Ben mentioned, aren't things the Chargers are really built to take advantage of. The Chargers right now are averaging about 5 yards per play on each down. First, second, third down, 5 yards play pass. They're just drop back. Justin Herbert's got like his highest time to throw rate of his entire career. And he's just sitting back there picking things apart. And the Chiefs are okay with that. They give up the third highest separation per target and the third highest amount of yak, but the Chargers are bottom 5 in both of those categories. So if you're telling me that Herbert's just going to kind of drop back and pick his spots and find open guys. And then, it's going to get you 5 yards of play and not much more. That doesn't really take advantage of where the Chiefs are lacking. Chiefs aren't great at getting to the passer this year. They're 21st, I think, in pressure rate. And, that's not going to bother Herbert at all. He's great under pressure. He's hardly under pressure. The line is great. But I just don't I think that it's going to be a slow, gross, ugly game, and the Chiefs are really good at winning those this year. It's what they're built to do. It's what they're trying to do. So I'm with Austin on this one. I think the Chiefs are going to get this one. I will say, let's talk about some injuries here. Lad McConkey is questionable. He's been limited all week. He's been in and out of practice for a couple weeks here, but this is the most in question he seems with a couple of injuries. But the Chargers are getting Junior Colson back, linebacker, so that's interesting because they've been playing with a ton of light boxes, been playing with a lot of DBs, and they finally get one of their thumpers back in the middle. Ben, we've been talking about the Chargers and their run defense for years now. Does Junior Colson, a rookie linebacker, get you excited, make you feel any different about what they'll do defensively, or do you think they're going to have to do a lot of the same thing for the last few weeks?
It gets you excited because you always, instead of seeing guys leave for injury, which the Chargers are doing with McConkey and with Dobbins, getting a guy back in gives you some juice. I don't expect it to make a huge difference, quite honestly, right here at first week. But that is my number one offseason need for the Chargers. I've heard other folks say other things. Stop that running game is my number one need. I'm going to go back here to matchups here, why I'm favoring the Chargers in this game. And it's tight. You're never comfortable picking anybody against the Chiefs when the Chiefs are at home, right? Never. But the Chiefs can't do a lot of the things that we saw the Ravens do to the Chargers a couple of weeks ago. The Ravens are so multidimensional on offense. There's nothing they can't do. The Chiefs are so limited. They didn't go into this season planning to bump and grind and suck on offense, which they basically have. They're so efficient because of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes just finding ways to do it one play to the next. But they didn't plan on both tackles being this bad. They thought at least one guy would be good, with the other guy maybe helping him out. Well, they're both really, really bad, which is leading to all these 2 and 3 tight end sets. Kansas City doesn't want to do that. They want to be 4 and 5 wide every week is what they want to do. They haven't been able to do it for the past 2 or 3 seasons. That's why you're seeing all the tight end sets, the heavy stuff, and Mahomes and Reed are just that efficient. So the Chiefs really can't take advantage also of what the Ravens took advantage of 2 or 3 weeks ago. I do think it's going to be a tight game. I just wonder if the Chargers can hit some of those pass plays that opens it up, and I don't know if the Chiefs can do that or not. So give me the Chargers to win in a really, really tight game here.
Austin, you mentioned at best the Chiefs are maybe 4th in the NFL. Are those 3 teams ahead of them in some order? Bills, Lions, Eagles?
Yes, those are the 3 that I would say, without a doubt, are better than the Chiefs. And then you get into the questions of a few others, but I mean, oh wait, no, there's one more. Um, I think the Ravens. I think I would consider the Ravens without a doubt better than the Chiefs right now. So honestly, 5th at best, probably.
Quick plug for the Simon and Friends podcast. We just did our power rankings 2 weeks ago, and the Chiefs did slip down to 3rd behind the Bills and the Lions. But after one additional week here, which we don't do 1 week rankings. We'll check back in a few weeks on that one. But yes, the Eagles certainly have ascended. Those were the top 5 teams in our power rankings for the past month. All right. Any more thoughts for you guys on game of the week? Austin and I are both taking Chiefs. Ben is taking the Chargers. And any other thoughts here before we move on?
Should be fun.
All right. It's a good time to get into our picks analysis, how things are going. So after last week, when Ben almost ran the table, going 11-1, holding firm to that first place lead, Ben is now, what is that, 123-4 or something ridiculous like that. Ben is 123-55 on the season. I went 10-2 last week at 118-60. I have overtaken Austin finally, who is 117-61, who's looking to embarrass me back this week. Parker is so embarrassed he's not here. He's at 106-72 right now. After still a 7-5 stretch, we all did pretty well, and that shows in our picks analysis, going 4-0 with the 4 horsemen once again for a grand total of 72-23. That's almost 76% hit when all 4 of us are together. Ben is pulling away in a number of categories, though. He had our lone solo win last week. He's now 5-4, only person above 500 going solo. Ben and I are now up to 8-3 as the best pairing when we agree. So I don't know, Austin, should we just start copying what Ben says? Is this why he puts his picks in right as we start recording now, do you think?
Well, see, that's something I tried to take advantage of last week is he always puts all of his picks in. So I was looking at his and I knew I needed to try and make a comeback. So I was actually kind of
Right.
fading him.
Yep.
Um, but that was silly. And I made some picks that I probably wasn't fully believing in. I was trying to convince myself I was just to try and catch up with Ben. So I didn't look at any of his picks when I made mine today. So we'll see.
All right, let's get into it then. Let's talk about our first game. We were just talking about the Eagles. The Eagles are at home for the Carolina Panthers. They are favored by 13.5. Should mention Reed Blankenship, the safety, is out, and tight end Dallas Goedert is back on IR. Ben, what are you thinking about for this one?
I'm so happy the Panthers are back to playing competitive football. It just makes me feel good about that team. But this is not a good matchup for them this week. Up in Philly, really good Phillies team that doesn't have a whole lot of weaknesses unless you have a good football team to kind of crack some, put some fissures in there a little bit. I don't feel like Carolina's got that. I feel like Bryce Young, even though he could probably get some yardage here, is probably good for an interception or two in this game. So given the Eagles, if Carolina could just keep it close for 2 to 3 quarters, I'll feel good about Carolina. Ultimately, though, a strong Eagles team in the second half probably pulls away in this game.
Austin, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, we just talked about how the Eagles, I think, are a top four team in the league. They should handle business here.
Yep, I am going Eagles as well. Next game on the docket here, we have Raiders at Bucks, the Gruden Bowl. Bucks are favored by 6.5 at home. Austin, what do you got for this one?
Yeah, I got the Bucks here. I'm honestly looking for a really big game from Mike Evans. I think the whole team really wants him to get to 1,000 receiving yards. He has to
Yep.
average like something like 96 yards per game over the back half or the whatever's left in the season. And this is definitely a game where he can, get to like 140, 150 and make the down the stretch easier. So I think they're gonna look Mike Evans' way early and often. He'll have a big game. Bucks get the win.
To that point, I should mention on some injury fronts here, the Raiders are going to be without corner Nate Hobbs once again. He's one of their better outside corners. Zamir White is also out for Vegas. Jacoby Myers is questionable to play as well. And for the Bucks, half of their defense is either out or questionable. KJ Britt, Mike Edwards, Josh Hayes, Joe Troyan, Shoyanka are all officially out. So the Bucks, who are already high octane offense, might want to really push the pedal to the metal if some of their defensive players are hurt. Ben, what are you thinking for this one?
So this is the Ahoy Mateys ARG game of the week between the Raiders and the Buccaneers, and I'm looking forward to it. This should be a deceptively fun game to watch. I do feel like there should be some points scored here. I've got the Buccaneers to win it. But hey, the weather should be halfway decent compared to some of these snow games and cold games we're getting. And the Raiders haven't quit on the season. So a fun game, but give it the Buccaneers.
Yeah, I am going with the Bucks as well. We have the Browns at Steelers up next. The Steelers are favored by 6.5. George Pickens was added to the injury report on Friday with a hamstring. He's questionable. And then for the Browns, Cedric Tillman and Jedrick Wills are both out. Wills is actually headed back to IR, and safety Juan Thornhill is questionable with the calf. Austin, what are you thinking for this one?
Yeah, I think the Steelers are gonna handle business. These divisional games, especially in this division, can get hairy. So I don't think they're going to, dominate fully, but I think they'll handle their business. Maybe get a key interception late or something to seal a deal. Jameis has a way of doing that, it seems.
James being Jameis. Ben, what do you got?
I'm picking the Steelers. There's just no question about it. But I am a little concerned here. Jameis Winston was able to crack the lid open on this Denver Broncos defense in a way that not many other quarterbacks did this year with a boatload of yardage. And so, yeah, he's probably going to throw an interception or two that's going to lead to a loss. But, that Steelers secondary isn't great. So you got Jameis maybe able to throw it over the top. Does that lead into a high scoring, messy game? And can the Steelers win a second barn burner, a second week in a row? So that does concern me a little bit, but I've still got the Steelers here.
Yeah, no risk it, no biscuit, right? If you're gonna be able to beat the Broncos that way, you're gonna also get the other edge of the sword there. I'm going Steelers. Just played the Browns 2 weeks ago, and I think they're gonna, from a coaching standpoint, player motivation standpoint, know what they need to do to get the win this time around. Next up, we have Falcons at Vikings. Talk about another revenge game situation. The Vikings are favored by 6. Stephon Gilmore is out for the Vikings. Several other defensive players are questionable. Harrison Phillips, Andrew Van Ginkel included, as well as Dalton Reisner on the O line. Ben, what are you thinking for this one?
I've not felt good about the Falcons for 4 or 5 weeks now, and I don't feel good in this game either. Vikings playing at home with a fast track. Unless Darnold just has a bad game, I'm not sure why the Vikings don't win by double digits here. The Falcons defense hasn't been playing well. Kirk Cousins hasn't been playing well. That all bothers me a lot. So I've got the Vikings winning 34-19.
Austin.
The Vikings are susceptible to the pass, and Kirk could absolutely light up the secondary, especially if he's given time in the pocket, which, with a few injuries is possible. But Bijan Robinson is, kind of the key, I think, to the Falcons offense, and the Vikings are as good as anybody at shutting down the run. So I think that's going to be what allows the Vikings to maintain a lead and hold on and get the win.
I'm going Vikings as well. I think for whatever reason, don't know if it's cold weather, don't know if it's just attrition of the season, but the 500-yard game from Kirk and what those few weeks were like seems to be in the rearview mirror, and the Vikings are not an opportunity for a get right game. Give me Minnesota in this one. Are we counting when it's the three of us without Parker's picks in? Are we counting these as four horsemen? What are we doing? Are we gonna have to be TBD on what we're calling this?
I
TBD
mean,
for me.
yeah,
Yeah.
especially in this one where it's definitely likely or that he picks the Vikings, but not a guarantee. I mean, I think we know he's probably picking Eagles and Bucks in the first two, but
He typing him in. That Joker, man, who knows? He said he was gonna try and just make a big comeback at some point. He
yeah.
might be looking to play a little mind game here.
All dogs.
Let's go to let's go to Jets Dolphins. The Dolphins are favored by 6 for Miami. Cater Kohu, Raheem Mostert, and Anthony Walker are all questionable for the Jets. Big news here for fantasy players. Breece Hall is out. Sauce Gardner is also doubtful. CJ Mosley is going to IR. Meanwhile, Ben, get this one. Elijah Vera Tucker, Olu Fashanu, and Morgan Moses are all questionable on the offensive line. That is after Tyron Smith is on IR himself. So the Jets are pretty banged up too. Ben, what do you think about this one?
I was already picking the Dolphins because they're the better football team and they're playing at home and it's back in a warmer climate than what they had to do the other week. You mentioned all those Jets injuries. That doesn't sound good. Give me the Dolphins here fairly comfortably.
Awesome.
Yeah, in the same way, healthy Jets don't scare me. And this injury riddled Jets team does not scare me even a little bit.
Yeah, give me the Dolphins too. Sneaky thing I'm looking for. I almost made this one of my bets, but Zach Sealer and Calais Campbell in the middle of that Dolphins defensive line have been crushing pockets the last few weeks until they run into the Packers. We know the deal. Dolphins going up in the cold, even Calais Campbell, they weren't feeling it. Jordan Love's one of the hardest quarterbacks to sack, but I think those two could really wreck this game, get Aaron Rodgers down a couple times, especially with all these O-line injuries. Next game up, we have the Saints at the Giants. New Orleans is favored by 5.5. Drew Lock is starting at quarterback again for New York. Bobby Okereke is out for the Giants as well. Malik Neighbors is questionable, and Jermaine Illuminor is doubtful. Meanwhile, for New Orleans, Taysom Hill is on IR with a knee injury. Austin, what do you got here?
I'm actually going against the grain here. I'm taking the Giants. They're playing at home, and this Saints team is not going to be as powerful, I guess, without Taysom Hill. He is a whole separate playbook for them,
Hmm.
and that's just gone now. The Malik Neighbors injury is he has to play if the Giants want to win. If he doesn't play, I don't see them winning. But assuming he's going to play, which I think he is, I think the Giants have a pretty good shot of coming out with a victory here.
Ben, how you feeling?
So this is the nobody gives a flying rip most irrelevant game of the week here. All right. It's going to be the Saints and the Giants in a game that nobody, maybe even their own fans, will be watching. Give me the Saints in a really tight one. I just like their energy better over the past 3 or 4 weeks than the Giants.
Thought Ben was on some like Gen Z TikTok vernacular that I didn't know. I'm glad Ben's making up his own stuff. We'll get back around to it, Ben. We'll get back around. Yeah,
I
give me
need
the
help.
Saints too. Give me the Saints too. The Giants, these injuries worry me. That the team morale overall worries me, especially with, as Ben said, the Saints kind of on the up and up. Give me New Orleans in this one. Jags at Titans. The Titans are favored by 3. Trevor Lawrence obviously is not playing once again. As well for the Jags, Tyson Campbell is questionable at corner. But on the other side, the Titans have Tavondre Sweat, Kenneth Murray, Jerome Baker, Jarvis Brownlee, and Roger McCreary all as questionable, all game time decisions. So you're probably getting a couple of those guys playing, but they're all going to be pretty banged up, it sounds like. Ben, what do you think for this one?
Last week's game against the Commanders, notwithstanding, in which I said the Titans had a real chance to win that game, and then obviously didn't. The game actually started. I'll take the Titans here. They're just the better football team right now. They've got the better energy. They've got the healthier quarterback who's actually producing something right now. So give me the Titans, 22-16. They're also playing at home.
Austin.
Yeah, I mean, with T-Law healthy, that would be a different story potentially, but I don't know. I might still lean Titans either way. I'm definitely leaning Titans without, or based on the injury that he sustained last week.
Yeah, I'm going Titans. I know these guys are injured and that's tough, but I think Murray and Baker are pretty replacement level linebackers regardless. Sweat is the big one for them. He's been a wrecker right now, but guess what? You still have Jeffrey Simmons there, so that it's not a bad place to be. Give me the Titans as well. Moving into the afternoon slate, we have the Seahawks at the Cardinals for a pivotal NFC West matchup. The Cardinals are favored by 3. For Seattle, Ken Walker, the running back, is out. And punter Michael Dixon is questionable. They added a punter to the practice squad, probably elevating him in case they need to activate him or make him an active player for the game, I should say. So a sneaky little wrinkle there. Special teams could play a factor in this one. Austin, what are you thinking for Seattle and Arizona?
I think I definitely want to watch this game. This is a really fun matchup for me. I do think I'm gonna pick the Cardinals ultimately, though. Even though I've flip-flopped back and forth on this, I feel like the Seahawks, especially with Ken Walker being out now, that's gonna hurt them a bit. And the Cardinals have lost a couple, but they've not necessarily looked bad, especially in that last week's game. They looked fine. I think they're the better team. I think they're the better roster. They have the better quarterback. I'm gonna take the Cardinals.
Ben.
So for me, this is the please don't be the NFC South game of the week because we've seen the NFC South for the past 2 or 3 years. You think you got teams figured out the pecking order, and then they just all kind of deflate. So I'm just looking for somebody here to please step up. These are the two division leaders, as it were, right now, with kind of the inside track. I'll pick the Seahawks in a tight one, but this was the hardest game of the week for me, man. I went back and forth on this all week. I really don't know who to pick here. Austin's right, but this should be a very fun, very tight game with lots of interesting plays. I think this game flow too is going to be good here. So Seahawks in a tight one.
I'm going with the Cardinals. I'm with Austin on this one. Ben and I made this our game of the week 2 weeks ago in a very hipsterish type of episode that we did. And a lot of the things we talked about still stand there. The Cardinals defense is actually sneaky good right now. The Seahawks offense is actually not very good. Um, and it was a weird game that just kind of came down to a few fluky plays. So give me the Cardinals 2 weeks in, 2 weeks later. Good offensive coaching staff to get some things figured out and play well against Seattle. Next up, we have the Bills at the Rams. The Bills are favored by 3.5. Dalton Kincaid and Keon Coleman are both questionable for the Bills. Alaric Jackson and Jared Verse are also questionable, but they are expected to play. Austin, what are you thinking for this one?
I'm going Rams here. It just feels like one of those games, especially with the Rams at home, that they can just come out and just put up a ton of points. I don't really have any, I guess, quantitative stuff to say to give a reason that I like the Rams. It's all feel, and I just feel the Rams will make a statement here this week.
Ben, what do you got?
So Thanksgiving brings about looking forward to the off season for a lot of these NFL teams to me. So real quick for the Rams, they need help in the secondary in the off season. They need help at linebacker. They need help all over the offensive line. Part of that due to injuries, but mostly due to talent. That right there has made them one dimensional and predictable, which makes them easier to kind of control. Even though Sean McVay is a tremendous coach, he just doesn't have quite as many toys in the box to play with here, quite as much flexibility. The Bills, even though they dropped a whole bunch load of expensive players during the last off season, still don't seem to have a lot of holes anywhere. So give me the Bills here indoors. They're feeling good about themselves. They come off the snow win with the 49ers. I just like them here. Give me the Bills.
Last week talked about Josh Allen wasn't going to lose a game coming off of being engaged. Now he's in his second home over there in LA. I mean, come on, he's not worried about anything right now. Yeah, give me the Bills in this one as well. I think Austin said this up top. They're playing too well right now, and the Rams are in a bunch of weird ones. Give me the Bills. Bears at 49ers rounding out our afternoon slate. The 49ers are favored by 3, despite obviously Christian McCaffrey and Jordan Mason going to IR. Nick Bosa and Trent Williams are both out once again, but safety Talanoa Hufanga is activated from IR. Meanwhile, for the Bears, DJ Moore is officially questionable with a quad injury, but he says he'll play. Ben, what are you thinking for this one?
This actually is a very fun matchup to me, even though neither team looks like they're going to do any long term damage this season. This should be a fun matchup. Back in pretty decent weather here compared to some of the stuff we've been watching. Give me the Bears, 23-19. I like this Bears defense, and I like where Caleb Williams has been going ever since he got a new play caller. So they've been doing good work, even on the weeks where he's not explosive. He's still getting rid of the ball quickly, cutting down on the sacks, cutting down on the INT, giving his team a chance to win. And the 49ers' energy just hasn't been good. It's not that they've quit. It just, for several weeks now, they just can't seem to connect, and they're still banged up to pieces. So give me the Bears and a tight one.
Austin.
This feels like the 49ers' last chance to kind of go on a run here. They have to win this football game. And I think they know that. And it's time Brock Purdy really stepped up. He hasn't
Yep.
played at quite the level that we've expected of him, that he's earned to have expected of him. And it's time to put up or shut up. This is kind of the same thing I've been saying with like the Bengals, and the Bengals just couldn't do it. Not any fault of their offense, but yeah, so I'm leaning on the 49ers to do what they have to do in order to keep their playoffs hopes alive.
I'm going. That's so great. I'm going with the Bears in this one as well. I think there's too many bad vibes for San Francisco, too many good vibes. Let's talk about, new coach bump. I know, it was kind of in the works for a while. Thomas Brown just got promoted to OC. Now he's getting promoted to interim head coach. But listen, I'm with Ben. The offense has been better since Shane Waldron went out. I know Eberflus is the architect of that defense, but that defense is really just kind of line up and play, and all those players are still there. They didn't go with them. So I think for what the 49ers have been putting out on offense, especially with the injuries, Caleb Williams, who's taken the most sacks in the league this year, not having to see Nick Bosa across the line of scrimmage from him is very, very helpful. Maybe that's going to free him up a little bit. I think other than like a huge Leonard Floyd revenge game with like 3 sacks or something like that, I think this offense is going to move. So give me Chicago in this one, get that new coach bump, get that first win for him. We already did our Sunday night game, obviously Chargers Chiefs. So let's move into the Monday night game, the last game we'll cover here. The Bengals at the Cowboys. Cleveland is favored. Cincinnati is favored by 5.5. Orlando Brown is officially out for the Bengals with that leg injury. Zach Martin is out for the Cowboys as well, and Trayvon Diggs is still questionable. Austin, what do you got here?
I got the Bengals. I'm kind of over the Bengals at this point, but when you look at who they play against, I think you have to take the Bengals. They are the better team, and I just kind of have to just kind of cross my fingers and hope they don't screw this up because they absolutely could.
Ben.
Simon, in the spirit of something I know you love, this is the keep persevering so coach doesn't get fired game of the week. All right. So Zach Taylor, Mike McCarthy, both could be out the door by the end of the year, or both could keep their jobs. I mean, I feel like both guys are still completely up in the air here. We'll see what ownership does after the season. Neither team going to make the playoffs. This should be a fun game, though. Cowboys defense has worked their way back into a competitive defense, and yeah, I just don't feel the Cowboys can score enough points to outgun the Cincinnati Bengals offense here. So give me Cincinnati in a fairly fun game, but that offense for Cincinnati too much for Dallas.
Yeah, I know it feels easy to beat up on Cincinnati right now, losers of three straight games, but listen, they're playing really good teams in these games, and even going back to the Eagles game a few weeks ago. But when they play bad teams, man, they beat them up. I mean, the Giants 17-7, the Browns 21-14, even in a divisional game. The Raiders 41-24 a few weeks after that. The Panthers reaching all the way back 34-24. They beat the bad teams just like they should. That this offense is going to be way too much for this Cowboys defense. Let's take a quick tangent here because Ben, you talk about these coaches being fired and whatnot. A lot of Cowboys this past week are coming out in defense of Mike McCarthy,
Mm-hmm.
specifically Dak Prescott. Micah Parsons
Yep.
said something just today or yesterday here. Um, Ben, what do you specifically when it comes to Mike McCarthy? What do you think about him? What do you think about if he were to be back for the Cowboys next year?
I'd be okay with it. I mentioned on our show earlier this week that I've actually liked McCarthy's work with Dallas more than I liked it with Green Bay because all the years he had Aaron Rodgers, he just didn't have a ton of postseason success to point to. Well, Dallas is kind of hamstrung by cap issues, and yet they've still just put together lots of wins every regular season. And the injuries have kind of derailed him this year. So I'd be okay if he came back. I don't know how many good coaches want to go there and work with Jerry Jones. So why not just keep it together if the players want to? That's kind of where I'm at. If he goes, though, it's just going to be because they can't fire the owner and they can't fire the general manager. So somebody's got to go. That would be him paying the price for it.
Austin, how are you feeling about McCarthy?
I'm not a McCarthy guy. I wasn't really a fan of the hire, so I would be a fan of the fire.
Yeah, it feels like everything has worked out in his favor though this year in terms of just key guys getting hurt at the right times. Like the fall off might have happened anyways, but when Micah Parsons misses 6 weeks basically to start the year and your defense is horrible, you can point to that. And then when Dak Prescott misses the second half of the year and your offense is horrible, you can point at that. And Jerry Jones probably will fall for it. So would not be surprised if he was back, especially when you just paid those players all that money and they publicly voiced for him. All right, let's get into our bets. That was the end of our pick segment. So a little update on the bets. I am in first place with 127.68
By a
goats.
lot.
Ben is in second with 99.04 goats. Parker is in third at 69.98. Austin is currently in last. Don't think that'll last for long at 52.50 goats. Austin, what are you going to do first to try and make up this gap?
All right, so first bet's going to be a team totals over. I bought a couple points on most of these, so I'm taking a line of 16 and a half total for the Titans, 19 and a half for both the Vikings and the Dolphins, and 23 and a half for the Eagles and the Bucks. So parlaying all those together gives me plus 365 odds. I'm gonna wager 7.5 goats worth on that, hoping to make
Hmm.
27.
Which one are you most confident in, and which one are you most worried about?
Most worried about probably the Vikings. I think the Vikings, Sam Darnold tends to have those kind of just mess up games. And then most confident, probably the Eagles to get that 23 and a half. I think they should clear 30, so 23 and a half should be doable.
Even if they coast for like the fourth quarter, they could get to 24 by halftime. So I think that one makes sense. Ben, what's your first bet here?
First of all, I just need to know how Austin's Cap feels about the Vikings this week. We feeling good about that or bad? You know, I
She's
was a little
not she's
down.
not talkative.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I got
yeah,
a
the
little
the
down
head
on the
pointed down at
Vikings
the
there.
end there. Okay, all right, all right. Austin's
Give
instilled the
me
reverse jinx idea into the bet.
yes,
Way to go, way to go.
the cat guts it. Give me the Bills here to win. I adjusted the line again here
Hmm.
to win by 7.5. So at minus 7.5. The reason for it that gets me up to plus 155 on the winning side. I don't want to sit there and bet at minus money or plus 107 crap. We'll bet 7 goats worth on that. Bills to win by 7.5.
Ben has hit on these alternate lines the last 2 weeks here. When I saw that Bills 3.5, I I almost wrote it down, but I knew that was coming. So good on you, Ben. All right, my first bet here. I'm not doing anything crazy. Bears money line. I think the Bears are gonna get that upset. I get the plus odds on that, plus 142. I'm gonna put 10 goats on that one. Try to win 14.2 goats. I said it before. I don't like the vibes of San Francisco. I want to be in on the new coach bump. I missed my chance when the Panthers changed their quarterback in week 3 this season. I want to ride a little bit of that high for the Bears on the new coach in celebration of Thomas Brown, former Panthers OC. So give me the Bears money line at 10 goats. Austin, what's your second bet here?
This was an interesting one, and I want to get y'all's opinion on this because the odds seem not great, or seem really too good, I guess, to be true. In the Cleveland versus Pittsburgh game, the Browns Steelers, there's a line for which team will commit the first turnover, and somehow the Browns to commit the first turnover is only at minus 105. I would think that's going to be like a minus 155 bet. So I really love the value on that. I'm going to put 15 on it because I'm pretty confident that would win me, uh, 14 and a half.
The Steelers are sixth in turnovers by an offense, so the sixth best lowest amount of turnovers on the season, but they do have five in the last 4 weeks. So that feels like it's starting to climb up a little bit. Um, Listen, it'd be very easy for me to see Russell Wilson and Miles Garrett just like strip sack
Yeah.
first play of the game, something like that. But I do think your the odds are ever in your favor, we will say. Ben, what do you got next?
I got to say, I like Jameis Winston for the most turnovers and the first turnover as well. Bless his heart. He's praying for no more pick sixes, but it's still him throwing the football, not God. So I expect maybe there might be another turnover involved early in this game. For myself, it's Chargers money line. I was so tempted by that Bears money line. But I was like, man, wavering Bears team as opposed to a Chargers team that I somewhat believe in here. I went with the Chargers money line. It was also plus 180 instead of plus 142. I'll put five goats worth on that. Tight game there, but all the Chargers got to do is win by 1 point. So here's hoping.
To your point and to Austin's point earlier, picking the 49ers, it does feel incredibly dumb to take a guy who was the quarterback coach 2.5 weeks ago and is now the interim head coach to beat Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers in a must-win game. It does
I
feel
picked them too.
incredibly stupid. Yeah, but I'm putting money on it, so let's be or goats on it. Let's be honest here. All right, my final bet again, nothing crazy. Josh Sweat over 0.25 sacks for plus 115 odds. Going after Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers. And Bryce Young, sneaky, really good, not taking sacks this year. Other than that first week where he took four, he's only taken one or two sacks in each of his games. But for the Panthers, who are probably going to need to pass a lot because we expect them to be down and down big pretty early. Sweat has 7 sacks on the season. He's got a couple in the last handful of games here, the way that defensive line has been playing, especially as of late. And without their safety back there, they might try and bring a little extra pressure to make up for the coverage situation. Give me Josh Sweat to get at least half a sack in this one. I'll be modest and put five goats on that one.
Simon the
I,
Sackmaster.
I don't know if that's a good thing, Ben. That doesn't. I don't. We'll work on it.
Let's workshop that.
Yeah, we'll hit the drawing board and we'll maybe come back to that one. Ben is maybe not in charge of nicknames moving forward. Anything else for you guys on week 14 before we get out of here? Austin, any fantasy updates or fantasy thoughts for you as we get into this final week of the regular season for most leagues and by getting and all these injuries?
Yeah, we talked a lot about fantasy on the Tricky Take Spot, so if you want more in depth, go check that out. But I think this is a fun week. There's a lot of lopsided games, so I think this is going to be a pretty high scoring fantasy week with a lot of these really good offenses. Like Saquon Barkley could put up just a massive number for you. There's a lot of those. I think, like I said, Mike Evans, I think is going to have a big game. So um, could be a really fun one, and then all comes down to Monday night. Someone's gonna have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase needing like 50 to win, and it might happen.
Oh yeah. So for more fantasy updates, go check out Tricky Takes, part of Box Score Network. If you want more coach firing talk, go check out Odds On Favorite with Ben and Robertson. More Box Score Network content for you. Simon and Friends podcast, Power Rankings. Ben and I just did a quarterback check-in for 2025 NFL quarterback draft prospects. So check that out. And as always, two peas on a pod with Parker, all their recaps and previews and updates throughout the week. And because CONCACAF, make sure you're checking out our soccer podcast as well. Follow us on Twitter at BScore Network. Make sure you are liking this video and subscribing to this channel. We're going to have more content on here for you guys moving forward, as well as these preview shows through the rest of the season. Until next time, thank you all so much. We will talk to you again soon. Have a good one.